People who made a marriage pact with someone like, if we're both single by the time we're 40, let's get married, and went through with it. How did it go? I had an uncle who did this with a girl for when they turned 35. They turned 35 and laughed it off, but ended up dating instead. A few years later, they got married. I think most people who do it are already interested in the other. They just don't want to admit it yet. Story 2. In my early 20s, I would hook up with this chick here and there. We were pretty good friends, actually. We never really hung out outside of social groups, though, which is a shame. She was fun as hell, and we always kind of found ourselves in the corner ignoring the group. Anyway, we made a pact that if we weren't in a relationship by 30, we would get married. Turns out she got back with her ex. It's been 10 years and she reminded me of our pact. I had completely forgotten. We are both married now to other people. We still talk here and there. Sometimes she tells me that she thinks we would have made a great couple, so I worry that she's not too happy where she is now. I haven't seen her in person in years. Edit. I guess I should add to the I worry she's not happy statement. We're both 35. She's married, 2 kids, stay-at-home mom. Great husband. He just works about 80 hours a week. I am married, no kids. Wife is a full-time student, I work full-time. We have the ability to up and move and do whatever, short of grad school. We travel when we can, which is pretty frequently. We just up and moved to another state for my wife to start her grad school program. Grass is greener, you know? I mean, for both of us. I have wondered where my life would be if I were to get married and have kids when I was younger. I'm sure she wonders about traveling the world at the drop of a hat and not being tied down to any place in particular. We both reminisce about the easier days of when we worked together, would make money on a night shift at a restaurant, and would go and bloat at the bar hanging out with everyone. We never really stopped chatting. I was invited to her wedding and her husband knows we chat, and my wife does as well. Story 3. I on and off dated a wonderful woman for a few years. Commitment was always kind of on and off, and we both had dated other people during this time. Things were exacerbated by us both being single parents. Mine were quite a bit older than hers, even though she was older than me. We were always close. When we were dating, we'd talk about our respective partners, no jealousy whatsoever. We ended up as friends with benefits for a while. One night, speaking on MSN, if I recall correctly, we made a pact. If we both hit 40 and neither of us were married, we would get hitched. To be honest, for quite some time, I thought we would. During one of our drier spells, I was at her house fixing her washing machine and her sister popped in to say hi. Well, not only did she look amazing, but I could tell she was checking me out, but I left it at that. More talking online, and I joke with her that I'm going to bed her sister. She jokes back that I should try it if I want, but her sis is married and very happy. Turns out, not as happy as everyone thought. Very abusive husband. Very long story short, I've been married to her sister for 4 years now. She didn't take the news well to start off with, but that's mostly because I broke the news in such a bickerish way because I was drunk and thought it was funny. We all get along like a house on fire. Her parents, after the initial shock, have been wonderfully accepting, as has her whole family. Really, I'm lucky to be a part of it. You know, I would understand her not taking it so well at the start, especially if she was thinking, oh, we might get together, and then all of a sudden you're sleeping with her sister. A bit awkward, but it sounds like it all worked out pretty well for you. And by you, I mean you and her. Hopefully she doesn't just secretly resent you. Story 4. My husband and I actually have a different pact. He grew up in a home where both his parents were married and never got a divorce, but he watched all 4 of his older siblings screw up in relationships and have unplanned children or multiple divorces or a wife who tried to run her husband over, etc. So he decided he wanted to get married and never get a divorce. I grew up in a home where my parents were divorced. I would go every other week from my mom to my dad's, and they lived about an hour away from each other. It brought a lot of stress into my life, and I also decided that when I grew up, I wanted to find somebody who I would be with forever, never getting divorced. My husband and I met in high school, and we decided we liked each other a lot. 2 years into our relationship, we decided to get engaged. 3 years after that, about 2 months after the wedding, we sat down and had an in-depth conversation about our relationship and what we expected of each other. And we decided then and there, if we ever wanted to get a divorce, it would be a knife fight. We would battle it out until one of us had died, and then the other would be single. This was to prove 2 things. 1, marriage/starting/raising a family is a serious thing. 2, little spats and arguments are silly reasons to leave someone. Learn to talk to each other and share each other's emotions, and your relationship will be stronger. Obviously, there are legitimate reasons to leave somebody. Affair, abuse, crime, neglect, etc. These specific reasons are an exception to the pact we have. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like 99+% of people don't get married intending to get divorced. Like, surely when you get married, you think you're going to be in it for the long haul. And if you don't, well, that's a whole other issue. I also feel like learning to talk to each other and share each other's emotions, that should be something that happens before marriage, right? Like during the dating phase, that's kind of the whole point of it. I don't know. I've heard this viewpoint before, and I just don't quite get it. I'm not saying they're wrong necessarily, just that I don't see the picture they're seeing. Story 5. I made this pact with a girlfriend from high school, early 90s, but much later in life. We dated in the 9th, me, and 10th grade. We had a falling out for a bit due to my stupidity, but by the time she was graduating high school, we were pretty close again. We went in very different directions, but managed to stay in touch. She partied a lot and sort of drifted. Waitress, bartender type stuff. I was doing responsible crap, college, military reserve, starting a civilian career. We would connect every once in a while over the years, and there always seemed to be a little something special there, but for the distance. She called me out of the blue one year, early 2000s, and tells me I need to watch the NFL draft because her boyfriend or fiance was likely to be drafted by a team in the state where she knew I lived. If all went as expected, it would bring us closer in distance than we had been in a long time. By this time, I was on my first marriage, or maybe living with who would later become my first wife. He did get drafted and they moved to the state, just 2 hours away. I met and partied with him/them for his birthday before the rookie season started. Good dude. Big dude. She and I were strictly platonic. He ended up getting traded around the league over the next couple of years and they ended up living a couple states away. Meanwhile, I was currently married by this time and had deployed to Iraq. Again, she contacts me out of the blue, maybe a MySpace message while I was in Iraq, after she happened to see me featured in an obscure trade magazine. After her and the NFL player broke up, she had taken an entry-level job in my civilian career field and happened to pick up the magazine for the first time ever that month. We started connecting again remotely and still purely platonic. I came home from that deployment to a marriage in ruins. She cheated, I filed for divorce. While I'm adjusting to being home after more than 18 months and my impending marital status, I decide to fly out to visit my friend, who welcomes me to stay with her for a few days to help me mend. It was between Christmas and New Year, and I was a bit fragile mentally. During those couple of days, we connect even more and confide a lot in each other. But she had a few boyfriends, I met at least 3, and lots of drama at the time. And clearly I had my own drama going on. I think that was when we made the deal. After knowing each other for more than 10 years, we knew we both loved each other, I'm convinced, but we both knew we needed to live and heal a bit more before we set ourselves up for failure. I think the agreement at the time was that we would get married if neither of us were already by 30. We talked about it regularly over the years, both assuring the other it wasn't a joke. Even her parents knew of the deal. She moved again. Her biological father drove out to help move her across the country to the state where we were originally from. On their way through my city, they stopped to visit. He stayed in a hotel, and she stayed the night at my house. For the first time in what seemed like forever, we were both single, and it was clear how much we loved each other. The next day she left, and for the next couple of years we continued to live across the country from each other. We stayed in touch and saw each other occasionally. The agreement remained in effect, but we kept moving the age because we just weren't ready. Then, 2 things happened. I met a girl and got notice that I would be deployed again about the same time. The girl I met, I really liked. She had her crap together and was beautiful. I wasn't trying to go overseas again attached to anyone, and at the time, she was really indecisive too. Meanwhile, I went out to visit the original girl. Then she came out to visit me. The new girl was still indecisive. The original girl had been having trouble finding work in her home state even after esthetician school, and she was in an abusive relationship that was really screwing her up. While she was visiting, we partied a lot. In fact, that's about all she wanted to do. I didn't mind much because I was leaving soon anyway. Among the many, many bad decisions we made, there was one where she agreed to house sit for me and take care of my dog while I was deployed for a year. I gave her use of my truck too. All she had to do was pay for her food and gas. Sounds like the makings of a country song, right? Now, I know what you're all thinking, but I had known this person for over 16 years. She wasn't a rando. She needed help, and so did I. All I wanted was for her to get a job and to help her get on her feet. I went into it with the proper intentions. It was a gift, and I expected nothing in return. There were genuinely no expectations about a future for us beyond what already was. Besides, I was conflicted. She was the beautiful party girl with baggage I had known and loved forever, but the new girl was truly marriage material that I just couldn't get a read from. It didn't matter because I didn't have to decide for at least a year. A year made all the difference. The new girl and I talked every day I was gone. She was supportive throughout the deployment in so many ways. My old friend had a few boyfriends along the way, which was genuinely fine, but I came home to my house and vehicle not in great condition. Thankfully, the dog was alive, but it was most likely because the neighbors across the street came and stole him from my house. I took the new girl to meet my parents a month after I got home from deployment and asked her to marry me on that trip. We moved to another state for my civilian career and will have been married 10 years next year. The original girl ended up staying in the town where she came to live with me and met another guy who she ended up marrying. I miss my old friend. I still love her, and I want what's best for her. If she is living a better life today than she was 11 years ago, and I think she is, then it wasn't all for nothing. I am just no longer a part of it. Edit. Adding one more significant detail. I left this out originally because it's still a bit painful and pretty personal, but I've been inspired by all the positive vibes. About a week before I was set to leave, the original girl was acting really distant and texting a lot. I just wanted to have a really good time before I left. We went to a movie, and same thing after the movie. Go to dinner, and same thing during and after dinner. Same thing on the way home. This is a week before I'm leaving, and I'm feeling like I made a bad decision. I call her out on it, and she's being evasive. We start fighting on the drive home, and I'm probably telling her what a crap human being she is that she can't even wait until I leave. She finally tells me she's been texting her mom the whole time, and of course I don't believe her. Next thing I know, her stepdad, who I've known for as long as her, is calling my phone. I can't recall the entire conversation, but in a nutshell, he tells me that she's pregnant. She's been texting her mom trying to work out how to tell me the week before I leave. Holy crap, I freak out. I'm not even sure I want to be with her, but also not entirely sure I don't. I do love her, and again, she's not a total rando. Is she even mom material? I'm not convinced she's wife material. I'm still freaking out. I've been so responsible about this my entire life, and a week before I'm going to deploy, I find this out. Is it even mine? And here she is in a city where she doesn't know a soul, and I've gotta leave. Eventually, I calmed down enough to have a conversation with her about it. Not sure if that was that night or the next day, but we quickly agreed to terminate the pregnancy. The conditions were just horrible. Perhaps worst of all was that the soonest she could be seen was after I had left. She had to go through it alone. My now wife and I have tried to get pregnant, and even with some very expensive treatment, have been unsuccessful. She has no knowledge of the original girl's terminated pregnancy, and I have no legacy. Story 6. Not me, but my great-grandparents who adopted my grandpa. I didn't get to know them as much as I would like, but this is a cute story. Great-grandpa Jay and great-grandma S were sweethearts since kindergarten and dated all through high school. I don't remember exactly what happened, but she moved away. Rumor is that she worked as a chef in the White House. Before she left, they amicably split, as the long-distance relationships in those days were pretty much impossible. They agreed that if they ever saw each other again and they weren't already married, they would get back together. Well, time passes and he marries his first wife, don't remember her name, who was a Serbian lady who had MS or some other terrible disease. He took care of her for many years before she passed. When he remembered her, he joked about how she watched so much TV as she was immobile that she knew all the names of the football players and kept track of all the big games. He thought that was the cutest thing. After she passed, one day he runs into S again in the supermarket. They talked and he asked if she was married, and yes, she had married a veteran called G. She was happy. Some time passes and G passed away as well. She found him in the phone book and they reunited, both missing their lost loves. They fell in love with each other all over again. They got married not long after and adopted 2 kids and were happy until she eventually passed away. She always said that she would come back as a monarch butterfly. They kept a huge garden in the backyard and butterflies would stop on their migration to Mexico. The next time the butterflies came through after she passed, one of them came to land on his hand and stayed for a few minutes. One of them does this every year that they return. I was very isolated from family growing up and estranged from their adopted son, my granddad, and I never thought they much cared about me until we found Jay again, and they had a picture of me on the mantle. I'll never forget that. He still hadn't cleared out S's old things, so we helped him until we moved away. He gave me S's nearly 100-year-old violin, and I restrung it. It has an absolutely gorgeous sound to it. Story 8. When I was in college, there was a girl in my major classes that I really got along with, and we would study together, do class projects, and collaborate with each other whenever we could. She was just really cool to hang around with, and she was, well, really hot too. She had an LDR with her boyfriend back home, so we were just friends. I respected that, even though a lot of the things he did were crappy. He would cheat on her, or when he'd visit her, he'd start some stupid fight with her and drive back home a day or two early. I just loved hanging out with her. We had a lot of shared interests, and we continued to collaborate, sometimes helping each other with projects in classes only one of us were in. Then, when we were seniors, she broke up with her loser boyfriend. Only, I had a serious girlfriend at the time. We still worked on stuff together, though. During one late-night caffeine-fueled project session, we were talking about the future. She says, "If neither of us is married when we turn 30, we should just get married and live happily ever after." I agreed, and we went on speculating about what our lives would be like and so on. After we graduated, I moved across the country and she moved to San Francisco. We tried to stay in touch, but it was hard. It was the days of dial, so no Facebook or whatever. We lost touch for a long while. I went to a conference in San Francisco and thought it would be great to get in touch with her while I was there, but I had no idea how to find her. About a week before I left, I got a call from her. She was working for the group that organized the conference. She saw my name on the list and got my number from there. I flew out early and we met for dinner the weekend before the conference. We just picked up where we left off as friends. We'd both had a couple of crappy relationships/breakups, but we were both unattached. She was just as hot as she was in school. Long story short, we hooked up. I stayed in my hotel just 1 or 2 nights, and the rest was at her place. After I went home, we talked every night on the phone. Eventually, I quit my job and moved to San Francisco to live with her. We got married when we were 35, and hey, still going. Story 9. My mom's soul sister, BFF, made a pact with my uncle. If they were both still single when 30, they would get married. She was 18 and he was 19. They'd been friends for over 5 years at that point. My mom was the common link, the one who introduced them. She knew they would have been perfect for each other. They started dating a few weeks after they made the pact. They were so happy. But she was from an abusive household and suffered from depression. Our family always tried to keep her happy. She would mostly crash at my mom's place to escape whatever crap storm was going on. One day, she simply couldn't take it all and ended her life at the age of 25. My mom's brother was devastated. However, my uncle stayed true to his pact. He held a memorial for her on what would have been her 30th birthday, invited all her close friends, his family, and anyone who knew and loved her. Everyone except her family. From what my mom recalls, they had already moved past the slight inconvenience of losing their daughter. My uncle, till his last breath, celebrated that Memorial Day as her birthday and his marriage anniversary with the love of his life. Needless to say, he never married. He did adopt a baby girl and gave her middle name as my mom's BFF. Although in India the concept of middle names doesn't exist and middle names are generally the first name of the father, yet he gave her one. Her name ended up being like first name, middle name, dad's name, and then last name. Story 10. I made this same pact with my high school girlfriend. We dated on and off for close to 3 years but remained really close. Our families loved each other's company. Everyone got along, except she and I would have little fights that we weren't able to reconcile, and for some reason we would break up, but always would go back to each other. They were stupid crap fights too. Then I went off to college. She left for college in a different state. We dated other people but still remained friendly and still kinda had feelings for each other. We met up during a winter break from college to catch up and have a few drinks. She brought her new boyfriend and I brought my new girlfriend. As soon as we all met up, I knew it was going to be a bad time. She blew up at me and my new girlfriend for not including her in more outings during the winter break. Essentially, dates when she had her own boyfriend staying with her family. She mocked my new girlfriend's laugh, belittled her for confusing something extremely trivial, and said that what we had, high school girlfriend and my relationship, would never be matched. All in front of her new boyfriend. It was honestly the only time I ever got up from a table without finishing at least half a drink to close out the tab and walk out. High school girlfriend sent a barrage of texts calling me a jerk and whatnot for days. I finally hit a breaking point. I said something to the effect of, "I wish I could tell you in person to delete my number, but I don't want to see you again, so this is it." She just wrote, "Goodbye, have a nice life," and that was it. Haven't heard from her since 2009. My then girlfriend who accompanied me is now my wife, 8 years married. I guess I am having a nice life. Ooh, boy OP, sounds like she did not quite get over things, huh? Either that or she just grew up to be an absolute jerk. Either way, you're better for it, man. Good for you. Story 11. Made this pact with my high school sweetheart a while after she dumped me at the end of high school. Things were tense for a while, but eventually we became more or less friends. I was introduced to the new boyfriends occasionally as if she was seeking my approval of them, and it still kinda hurt every time. Not sure when it came up, but we made the pact, and I think it was for 30. A few more years went by and my few relationships were largely short and not very fulfilling. At some point though, around 25 or 26, I canceled the pact. I decided that I didn't like the idea that I would be a last resort. If she didn't want me for all that time without a pact, I didn't want her because of one. Good thing I didn't stick with it anyway. I met the woman I did marry when I hit 30. Last I know, the ex has been married 3 or 4 times. OP, that is a huge level of emotional maturity that I think a lot of people, maybe including me, wouldn't have. Being able to be like, no, I don't want to be a last resort, no matter how much I like you. That's solid, man. Good for you. Anyway, that's the last story for today. Thank you so much for joining me on another one. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.